With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Alrighty, gunfighters, this is like take 1.5. I recorded this episode in Germany with a new microphone in the airport, and something happened, and I don't know what, but the first half of the audio was just bad even for my standards, right? Even for like a mobile episode, it was just unusable. So the second half seemed better, though. I don't know what happened with the microphone, I don't know, but I'm going to try and record the first half again for you guys on building a modern fighting AR in 2025. Hopefully, guys appreciate that. That's what we're going to talk about today, modern gunfighting AR-15 build in 2025. Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I've been blessed with a lot of different gunfighting relevant experience for this episode. Check out the link in the show notes if you're not familiar with the bio. Let's get into it. We are seeing kind of an explosion, I would say, unless there's an even better era. We live in the golden era right now of the AR-15 as far as options and really good ones and affordability. I grew up during the assault weapons ban. I grew up in a time when if you wanted an AR-15, it was crazy expensive. Even, after the assault weapons ban, there was a couple of companies. There was Colt, there was Bushmaster, maybe Olympic Arms, but they were all, adjusted for inflation, pretty expensive and not that popular. They actually weren't very popular until you got into the GWAT. Now, that I was part of that. I signed up pre-9/11. I was there for the invasion of Iraq. We had M16A2s, but as far as on the civilian market, the AR-15 was not anywhere near as popular. It was kind of a niche thing. If you were a super gun guy or into militaria, you might have one, but it wasn't real common. Much more common would have been like an SKS, a Mini 14. We forget how far we've come in a short amount of time in the AR world, and I think part of that, looking back, analyzing it, was the global war on terror. People saw these things. They saw what guys were doing with them. They saw that they actually did work. They started getting mass adoption on the civilian side, and here we are today. We have a ton of good options. We have a ton of bad options. Not every option is good. Those, vertical broom handle grips for the front of your gun, just don't. Just don't. If it's a super short gun and you want like a finger stop, that's one thing, but stop it with like the vertical grips. Like that was a horrible idea from jump. Some kind of small index point so you put your hand in the same place, that's fine. But don't mess around with those. Like not everything that comes out is a good idea. Let's start off with talking about barrel length. When I went, the Marines, M16, even the Army, it was an M16A2, 20-inch barrel. 20-inch barrel was the M1 since Vietnam era. That's a proper rifle, M16 rifle. The M4 is the carbine. We saw through that 20 years that it kind of makes more sense as an all-around gun. 16-ish inches. You can go 14.5 pinned. I like the option to be able to change muzzle devices. So I don't think it makes that big a difference to have an 1.5 inch difference and have a pinned and welded A2 or something on there. I would much rather have the ability to change from a muzzle brake to a flash hider to whatever. With that, even in 2025, if you don't have a specific reason, and brakes do work and they are a good idea for some environments, even for serious work. But if you don't know or have another good reason, the A2 is a pretty good compromise. The A2 flash hider, they're cheap, they're affordable, they work. They're a pretty good mix, especially for fighting. Again, if you want something else, there are plenty of other good options, plenty of good brakes out there. But the A2 is a good compromise. Now, getting back to the 16-inch barrel, 16-ish inches, right? If you have a reason for something else, that's fine, but we're not talking about niche ARs. I've done whole episodes on that. We're not talking about AR pistols, which I would consider a niche gun. I'm not talking about a super long-range precision AR, which again is a niche gun. I'm talking about all-around fighting carbine. 16-ish inches. Again, you want to go 14.5, you're just going to stick with an A2 pinned and welded, fine. You want to go with an 18-inch a little bit longer, fine. But something in that realm, a carbine, that has come to dominate and take over the kind of 20-inch arena for a reason. There's still a place for a 20-inch, but it's not the go-to. The go-to is somewhere around 16 inches. And I am going to say, I know there's a lot of the government profile barrels out there. They're common. They're common because the military uses them, so I think civilians think they're cool. But here's the thing. They don't make sense for you unless you're running an M203 grenade launcher. Those cutouts being lightened where they don't need to be, being extra heavy where they don't need to be. The government profile barrel doesn't make a lot of sense if you're not running a grenade launcher, which you're probably not. That said, if you got a good deal on one and it's a shooter, it's accurate, it's reliable, that's okay. But you don't need a government profile barrel. In fact, that's it does more harm than good for you. And you probably don't need a super heavy barrel either, because you're not running full auto. That's where a lot of the abuse, and you might want a heavier barrel. You're not doing that. I'd say a medium contour barrel, a light contour barrel, even a pencil barrel makes a lot more sense. Again, for an all-around fighting carbine. Now, for a long time, the gold standard for a fighting rifle carbine was the cold hammer forged chrome line barrel. It's still a great option. Nothing wrong with a cold hammer forged chrome line barrel. If you're willing to do a little bit more maintenance and keep it cleaner, stainless steel, because it's not as slick, and stainless doesn't mean it won't rust, it just means it will rust less likely to rust. Stainless steel is good. It won't last as long, but if you're willing to change out your barrel every 10,000 rounds or so, not a big deal. Stainless is a good option. But it's not a new process, but it's new as far as affordability and mass adoption, and that's nitride. Nitride is not bluing. It may look like bluing because it's a shiny black coating, but it is way, way better than bluing in every way. If you want some old school, and I love them too, like pre-64 Winchester, walnut, blued steel, I get it. They're beautiful. But for a practical fighting rifle, nitride is not bluing. It is very impervious to the elements. It's very slick, and it's a super hard treatment for the gun. It gives a lot more longevity to a barrel. It gives a really slick surface, which I shouldn't have to tell you why that's really good for bolt carrier groups and for barrels, chambers. I don't know if its life is as long as chrome lining, a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but it's right in there, and it's very affordable. It's your best value. Nitride, I don't think, is inferior to a cold hammer forged chrome lined. I think it's a lot more to do with the barrel, how the rifling's cut, and quality of the barrel, quality of the chamber cut. But I have no problem with nitride for a go-to fighting rifle. One of the really good things to come out of this, explosion of good AR-15s. So take your pick, stainless steel, cold hammer forged chrome lined, or nitride. Nitride is a very good affordable option. Don't turn your nose up at it. Also, right, back in the day, it was carry handles. You had a carry handle. The flat top, you forget, if you're just getting into this, that not that long ago, that wasn't a thing. Like, if you wanted to mount something on your M16, your M4, you had to, screw into the handguards. There was no universal mounting system. The 1913 rail, or the pick rail as it's often called, a revolution. Just a game changer. A flat top upper is the standard. Unless you're going retro, that's not what we're talking about today. Get a flat top upper, get backup iron sights, but get the ability to mount a really good optic. But the flat top upper, that's going to be your go-to. And a rail system, probably today free float. If it's a fighting carbine, free float is not as necessary as a lot of people make it out to be. But why not go with a free float? And the quad rail is so mid-2000s. It was good for its time, but it's heavier than it needs to be. The tactical cheese grater, that's kind of how you can tell if somebody's been watching too much Hollywood versus actually doing practical stuff with their AR, they'll have way too much stuff on there because they see it in movies, they see it in TV. That's not real. That's Hollywood. Those guys can do a scene and yell cut, and some second or something is going to run up and grab their rifle, take care of it for them, and their little armies get tired or whatever. As opposed to an infantryman or something that's going to be humping that rifle around for years. Or you that might be getting a ton of reps in with it. Less is generally more when it comes to accessories. Get the accessories that you need, but for that, you probably don't want a quad rail. They were good for their time. They're dated. Part of the reason we're doing this episode. Get some kind of rail. There was the big debate for a long time, Keymod versus M-LOK. M-LOK won that. Get a good M-LOK rail. I don't care who it's made by. And get a few rail sections and mount where you want it. I've done whole episodes on setting up your fighting AR, so I don't want to get too far into minutia, but just know why you mount the stuff where you mount it, not because you saw it on TV. But like, if you want to run your white light at 3 o'clock, cool. You want to run it at 7 o'clock, fine. You want to run it at 6 o'clock, rock on. Just go to training, get training, and figure out why you're going to run the stuff the way you're going to run it, and don't put anything on there that you don't need. That might change over time. So an M-LOK rail is really good for that. Take advantage of that. Let's talk about triggers. Now, a mil-spec trigger, they're pretty much garbage. Can you shoot really accurately with them? Yeah, I qualified expert in the Marine Corps, shooting out to 550 yards or 500 meters with iron sights with a garbage trigger. It can be done, but why roll a boulder uphill? There are some really good triggers out there. Even if you get one that's about the same weight, a service weight trigger, but get it a lot cleaner, a lot better. And just, again, get some training, take a class, know why you like what you like. You might like a curved 2-stage. You might like a flat single stage, right? But know and have a good trigger in there. There are many, many good triggers. Talking about the golden era, there are so many good triggers out there. Get a good, clean trigger. Doesn't have to be light, but it should be clean. As far as the lowers go, it almost doesn't even matter. I know the lower is a serialized part, but it's hard to have a bad lower. It's a block of aluminum. I would stay away from the polymer ones. For a go-to, they're niche applications, but for a go-to, I would probably stay away from them. Get a good already made. I'm all for your freedom to make an AR lower, but for your go-to fighting one, unless you're a master machinist, you're not going to make it as good. So just get a cheap one. They're like $50. There's nothing wrong with a good mil-spec lower. The coating almost doesn't even matter, right? It's not like the upper or the bolt carrier group where it's high-stress moving parts. It's a simple block of aluminum with holes drilled in it. Get any decent mil-spec one. And if you want a better one, just know why you want it. If you want a magwell, cool, get one with a magwell. If you want ambi controls, which I would say a lot of times stay away from, the extra complexity is often not worth it. But if you want that and you know why, then get one that has that. Unless you have a good reason, just go with whatever mil-spec lower you want. It's really hard to make a bad. I don't think I've ever seen a bad lower. So that almost doesn't even matter. Spend your money on the things that do matter. We talked about coatings on barrels. Also, the bolt carrier group, that is important. That's one of your high-stress parts, one of the parts that often break. Make sure you have a good extractor. Maybe upgrade the extractor, keep the old one. But bolt carrier groups, this is one place where I'll tell you to stay away from mil-spec. Manganese phosphate, which is the military spec. That's a military spec, I think, because it's cheap. I think originally Colt Armalite went with a chrome, Armalite. Originally went with a chrome line bolt. Way back in the day, back in the 60s. I think that's always has been a better option than manganese phosphate. It's not a very slick finish. That's a part where you want a slick finish. So, again, chrome line bolt carrier group, great. Titanium nitride, also great. Again, regular nitride, really good value, a really good slick hard finish. So I would say in this instance, probably don't go with the mil-spec. Maybe keep the mil-spec one for a spare and get a better bolt carrier group. Make sure if you're not doing a piston system, if you're doing a direct impingement, which most of you probably will be, make sure that the snorkel is staked, where the gas tube goes into is staked. get a good finish on it, and just get a good bolt carrier group. That's where a lot of your issues potentially can come from. It's where a lot of the small moving parts are. So, also, they're a pain in the butt to clean, and those slicker finishes will help with that. On the upper and the barrel,
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
There was a time when it made a lot of sense to build, like buy a barrel that you want and put it on an upper that you want. There are so many options today. I'm going to tell you, don't do that. Just buy a built upper with the BCG, without the BCG, but where the barrel is already into the upper. This is a place where you can potentially run into trouble unless you have all the specialty tools like a go-to legit wrench and a torque wrench and a good vise and all that stuff and all the blocks actually fit properly for the upper to torque it down. Don't do it yourself. You can do it at a kitchen table. You can do it, but you can also potentially run into some real problems. So I'm going to tell you, don't. It's just not worth the hassle. If you're building your own AR, just get one with the barrel already proper. And if it's a legit company, it's going to be properly set into the upper receiver. Just get one that's already done. There are so many options. I don't think that you're going to have trouble finding a barrel that you want in an upper. So I'm going to tell you, get the upper already built. Okay, I think this is about where the audio gets better and we can run with the original audio coming at you from Frankfurt, Germany. So with that, guys, enjoy the rest of this episode. I appreciate you. And this is pretty much all of them nowadays anyway, unless you're going for a real specialty like varmint hunting upper or something. Get a 5.56 chambered upper or get a 223 wild chambered upper. 223 wild is a cool chambering, but there's so much more that goes into rifle accuracy. Don't think that just because you get a 223 wild cut in your chamber, it's going to be somehow more accurate than a 5.56 gun. That's one little component. So they're both good. Get either one. If you get a sweet deal on a 223 wild, go for it. Nothing wrong with a good 5.56 chamber for most things. The three you're probably going to consider today for your barrel and chamber is going to be chrome-lined, hammer-forged, cold hammer-forged chrome-lined barrel. That was the gold standard, and I don't know if it still is the gold standard, but it's a good standard. So if it's a hardcore, like your one and only AR, and you're wanting to run it hard for years, putting tens of thousands of rounds to it, chrome lining is good. They're generally a little bit more expensive. Chrome lining is good. Chrome lining in the chamber is good for reliability in the firearm itself, and chrome lining in the barrel, like the rifling itself, is good for longevity of the barrel. So chrome lined bore and barrel, those are really good. You're also, though, adding extra complexity. You're putting an actual coating in the bore, so that can decrease accuracy. So just something to think about. And then if you just want a target rifle, or you don't plan on shooting it, more than a few, 10,000 rounds before you change your barrel, stainless steel. They're a good stainless steel, like a 416 stainless or some other stainless. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to keep it a little bit cleaner, I think, than you would something slicker like chrome line. But there's nothing wrong with a good stainless steel barrel. And they often are some of the most accurate barrels, or can be. Now, the other big innovation as of recently, it's not a new technology, but it's new to mass adoption, is nitride. Nitride is an awesome coating. It is not like, actually it's not a coating. It's not a coating like chrome lining. It is an actual treatment of the steel that makes it crazy hard and very rust resistant. It may look like bluing because it's kind of shiny and black. It is not bluing. Bluing is kind of garbage. Unless you're just going for a classic aesthetic, like a classic walnut and blue steel hunting rifle. Even then, I'd say if they made it in nitride, get it in nitride if you're actually going to use it. If it's a wall hanger, get it in bluing. But bluing was never a great option. It was just the best they had with their crude technology of the time. But nitride is an actual really hard treatment of the steel with different chemical compounds that like infuse into the steel and make it very, very hard. I think honestly it's as good as chrome lining, and it has some advantages over chrome lining because you don't actually add a coating, so you're less likely to mess up the accuracy because there's just less going on. And it gives you a crazy hard, slick finish. It has really good longevity. I don't know if it's as long or longer than chrome, but it's pretty close. And just as technology goes and the mass adoption of it goes, nitride barrels are probably your best value. And they're really, really good. I don't think I would bat an eye. I think we're arguing minutia. If I was looking at a very similar build, nitride versus cold hammer forged chrome line barrel, I think they're both very good. Now, either one of those barrels could be crap, but I don't think the actual chrome line or nitride is what would make the difference. The quality of the barrel and the cutting of the rifling and the preciseness of the chamber, head space, all those things are going to make more of a difference. A good crown on the end of the barrel, those are going to make more difference, I think, than that coating or that nitriding. So treatment, I guess, is a better word than coating for the nitride treatment. So if it's going to be a good fighting AR, if it's super high round count, nitride or chrome line, if it's not going to be super high round count before you change out the barrel, stainless is fine. Again, I'm a big fan of the 16-inch or getting something shorter with a pistol brace. That way you can change the muzzle devices. Now, there's nothing wrong with an A2. An A2 is actually the A2 flash hider is actually a very good balance, for tactical operations. I actually kind of like brakes. I know a lot of people can't stand them. They're like, ooh, you got to put a silencer on your gun. No, you don't. In fact, I want my guns often louder. I run brakes a lot more than I run a suppressor. Make my gun loud and make it not move, because whatever I'm shooting is hopefully not going to be an issue very long. So I don't really care if it hears me. Bullet's supersonic anyway, right? So I actually like brakes, and I like the ability to put a brake on. But in certain environments, like really fine, thin desert dust, moon dust, they can be kind of an issue because they throw up a lot of dust. Kind of like shooting an old school, Civil War brown vest musket. It just throws stuff everywhere, which has its own problem. So depending on the environment, I like to switch out the muzzle device. And yes, you will probably have to re-zero your gun. But nothing wrong with an A2. Nothing wrong with a 3-prong, actually. But muzzle brakes, muzzle devices, flash hiders, those are so easy to change and readily available. Just pick one that you like. But if you don't know or have a good reason otherwise, there's nothing wrong with an A2. I shouldn't even have to say it, but a flat top upper, great innovation when it came out, kind of the standard now. Like, unless you want a retro thing or a very specific thing, get the flat top upper, get backup iron sights. If it's a fighting carbine, which is what we're talking about, backup iron sights. And then you can debate with yourself the great debate, the LPVO versus the red dot. Optics are a force multiplier. I love iron sights. You should get your iron sights. You should make sure they're zeroed. You should know how to shoot with iron sights. But optics are a force multiplier. So once you get that flat top upper and your backup iron sights, you debate with yourself whether an LPVO or a red dot makes more sense for you. I've done, I think, several episodes on that. I even did some real-world testing with data and everything on those. How much more accurate is one, how much more faster is the other, how much faster is the other, rather. But either one of those, LPVO or red dot. Again, there's other optics, but then you're talking about a specialty thing, not a general-purpose fighting AR. I love iron sights, but you're behind the curve in 2025 if you don't have an optic on your rifle. So those are some thoughts there. Since we're talking about building your own AR, there was a time when it kind of made sense to buy different pieces. Like, I want this upper and this barrel, and I'm going to put them all together. I don't honestly think that makes sense anymore. There are so many good complete uppers, and although you can build out an upper at the kitchen table, I wouldn't. I would just buy the upper that you want, there's so many different options with different barrels, different barrel profiles already in an upper, and that's one place you can run into issues if you don't know what you're doing, like lining up gas tubes and setting the correct amount of pressure on the torque wrench or on the specialty tools. That's one place you can actually run into trouble. So unless you already have all the tools and devices and the gauges, I wouldn't even do that. I would just buy the upper already built the way that you want it. If you want to just get a basic upper and barrel, that's fine, and put your own BCG in it if you want to upgrade. Again, nitride treatment is probably going to be your best bang for your buck on your bolt carrier group. If you just have the old school military mil-spec phosphate finish, I think that's kind of garbage, but it's better than nothing. But in today's world, if you're going to get your own BCG, just get a good mil-spec actual profile BCG. Don't go with the lighter ones. Don't go with the crazy ones unless you're building like a competition rifle and you're going to shoot one specific kind of ammo out of it. Get the military weight BCG, because that's probably going to be your best for a broad spectrum of ammo. But don't get it in the military specified manganese phosphate. That coating, I think, is way, way outdated. Get it in nitride. I think it's better. It's slicker, which you want on a BCG for a lot of reasons. Or you could get chrome lined or tin titanium nitride if you want to upgrade. Those are all good finishes. Again, probably your best value is nitride. So I pretty much cover most of the things. The triggers, much like a lot of the mil-spec stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. You probably don't want a mil-spec trigger. You can run a mil-spec trigger well, but you're kind of rolling a boulder uphill. Get a better trigger, even if it's the same weight. Get like a good 2-stage, 4.5 pound kind of duty trigger if that's what you want. Way cleaner, way better than your mil-spec trigger. If you got a mil-spec trigger that came in your system, put it in a bag and put it in your gun case or whatever for if you have any issues or any small parts that need to be replaced. But you can do a lot better than that mil-spec trigger. Lowers, I think, almost don't even matter. I know that's a serialized part of the gun, but it's, let's be honest, like the simplest, stupidest part of the gun. So simple that you can make them yourself from like 80%ers or a block of aluminum. Now, don't do that. Not for legality reasons. It's perfectly legal to do that. I just think you're not going to make it as well unless you're a master machinist. You're not going to make it as well as a mass-produced one. And they're like $50. So just get a good lower. And again, they almost don't even matter. I don't care, I can't remember the last time I saw a bad lower. If you just get a mil-spec lower, there's nothing wrong with that. If you decide you want specific attributes, like you want a larger magazine well, or you're left-handed, you want ambi controls, whatever, you can get that. Just know why you're getting it, but there's nothing wrong with a good basic lower. Coating on the lower, the lower almost doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if there's any kind of fancy finish on the lower. Just regular anodizing is fine because it's a block of aluminum. It's not dealing with a lot of high velocity moving parts like the upper is with the BCG bolt carrier group moving back and forth or anything like that. I don't think I'd go with a polymer lower unless it was a real specialty build, but anything other than that. And if we tie it all together, I would say try and keep it in the 5 to 7 pound range. Any lighter than that, you might have some issues. Any heavier than that, you might have some issues. Anywhere between the 5 and 7 pound range. And a lot of people tend towards heavier. I'm talking about the entire gun with all the accessories on it. I'm not talking about, when you bought it, it was 7 pounds and now it's 9.5 because you added a bunch of junk to it that you didn't need. Talking about the system is 5 to 7 pounds. And then obviously if you're building this yourself, even if you're not, but if you're building it yourself, even more testing. Go out and run your gun, get comfortable with it, get to know it, bond with it, know what kind of lube it likes, what it doesn't like, and make sure it's reliable. So there we go. Building a good fighting AR-15 in 2025. I hope this was helpful. Hope you'll forgive some of the audio quality and interruptions. Guys, I appreciate all that you do. I appreciate you if you support the podcast. One of my favorite verses that I thought of quite a bit in Norway when I was doing some, hiking up fjords and stuff like that, and the mountains of Norway. Psalm 18, he makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He sets me on high places. He teaches my hands to make war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. Thank you for listening and have a blessed day.